In October of 1962, the world came closer to nuclear war than at any other moment in human history. It did not happen suddenly. There was no explosion, no warning siren, no dramatic countdown on television. Instead, the danger unfolded quietly, behind closed doors, through secret decisions, miscalculations, and a single gamble that nearly ended civilization. What saved the world was not luck, it was restraint. And at the center of that restraint was a decision made by the United States to remain calm when panic would have been easier. By the early 1960s, the Cold War had reached a dangerous phase. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a global struggle for influence, credibility, and survival. Nuclear weapons were no longer theoretical. They were deployed, tested, and aimed. The Soviet Union, lagging behind the United States in long-range missile capability, searched for a way to change the balance of power. Cuba, newly aligned with Moscow after Fidel Castro's revolution, became the perfect opportunity. What followed was a decision made in secrecy, driven by urgency rather than caution. The Soviet leadership chose to place nuclear missiles on Cuban soil, just 90 miles from the coast of the United States. These weapons were capable of reaching American cities within minutes. The operation was conducted covertly, under the assumption that it would go unnoticed, or, if discovered, would leave Washington with no acceptable response. It was a gamble based on secrecy and speed. And it was a mistake. American surveillance aircraft soon detected the missile installations. The photographs were undeniable. Nuclear warheads were being prepared within striking distance of the United States. When the evidence reached the White House, the pressure was immediate and immense. Military advisors urged decisive action, airstrikes, invasion, immediate force. The logic was simple: destroy the threat before it became operational. Panic, in that moment, would have been understandable. But it was not chosen. President John F. Kennedy understood that a reckless response would not end the crisis. It would ignite it. Rather than acting impulsively, the United States imposed a naval quarantine around Cuba, a calculated move designed to halt escalation without triggering war. It was a decision rooted in control, not fear. The message was firm but measured. The United States would not tolerate the missiles, but it would also not be the one to fire first. For 13 days, the world held its breath. American and Soviet ships faced each other at sea. Communications were tense and uncertain. Misinterpretation at any moment could have led to catastrophe. Behind the scenes, diplomacy worked relentlessly. Kennedy resisted pressure from those who demanded immediate violence, understanding that true power lay not in speed, but in discipline. While the Soviet Union waited for the United States to blink, America refused to panic. The crisis ended not with missiles in the air, but with messages exchanged. The Soviet Union agreed to remove the missiles from Cuba. The United States pledged not to invade the island and quietly removed outdated missiles from Turkey. More importantly, both sides recognized how close they had come to annihilation. In the aftermath, direct communication channels were established between Washington and Moscow. Nuclear strategy changed. Restraint became doctrine. The Cuban Missile Crisis was not a victory defined by destruction. It was a victory defined by self-control. The Soviet strategy relied on secrecy and escalation. The American response relied on transparency, patience, and leadership under pressure. The world survived not because weapons were stronger, but because judgment was. History often remembers moments of force. It remembers battles, invasions, and explosions. But the Cuban Missile Crisis stands apart. It is remembered because the most powerful nation on Earth chose not to act on fear. It chose to think. It chose to wait. And in doing so, it proved that strength is not measured by how quickly you strike, but by how well you resist the urge to do so. This was History Went Wrong. A reminder that when systems built on secrecy gamble with the future, it is restraint, not aggression, that saves the world.